The warrior they said never existed. Queen Naylyra stood at the edge of the crash site. Her crown cracked, her silver robes burned and torn. Her guards were gone. Her ship, once the pride of the Crystal Dominion, lay in pieces across the frozen valley. The wind howled. Snow fell like ash from a dead sky. Her boots sank deeper with every step, but she kept walking. She had to survive. Above all, a queen does not beg. A queen does not panic. But even her courage could not erase one truth. She was alone. They had come to this moon after receiving a distress signal. It was supposed to be empty, just another mining world lost to the cold. Instead, her ship was shot from the sky by unknown weapons. Pirates, maybe. Or worse. She touched the side of her neck. Her comm was broken, her energy blade was dead, and her body ached. She walked toward a cave near the cliffs. It was dark inside, but she had no choice. Shelter first. Answers later. Inside the cave, her hands searched the walls for warmth. Her breath made clouds in the air. Ice covered the stones. Then she heard it. A sound. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Not the shuffle of a wild beast, but something with purpose. She turned quickly. "Show yourself," she said, her voice sharp. No reply. The sound came closer. Then from the shadows a figure stepped out. Tall, silent, dressed in old black armor covered in dust and frost. The face was hidden under a cracked helmet. A strange weapon was strapped to his back, and the one she didn't recognize. He did not kneel, he did not speak. He just looked at her. She raised her chin. "I am Queen Naylyra of the Crystal Dominion," she said. "You will identify yourself or be removed." The figure tilted his head slightly, then removed his helmet. Underneath was a human face, skin weathered, eyes cold. A short scar ran from his left eyebrow to his cheek. A human. Naylyra stepped back in disbelief. "That's not possible," she said. "Humans are extinct." He said nothing. "They were wiped out over 100 cycles ago. Your kind is—" "Stories," he interrupted, his voice low and rough. "My kind became stories." She stared at him, heart pounding. "But you're real." "Unfortunately." "How are you alive?" He looked past her toward the snow outside. "Because I learned how not to die." She followed him deeper into the cave. They sat beside a small fire he built with ancient tools. Her hands were still shaking, though she tried to hide it. He stared at the flames, not at her. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Nothing." "Then why did you save me?" "Because someone should." His answers were short, sharp like stone. "What's your name?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he looked her in the eye and said, "Jace." She repeated it slowly. "Jace. You came here because of a signal," he said. "That was a mistake. You sent it?" "No. But you weren't supposed to find this place." "What is this place?" "The last corner of the galaxy where the stories still breathe." She looked at him closely. He was strong, but not just in body. Something about him felt heavy, like he had seen too much, like he had lost too much. "You were a soldier," she said. "I was something before the fire," he replied. "What fire?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stood up, walked to the cave wall, and pressed something hidden in the ice. A small panel opened, light spilled out. Behind it, metal steps led down into darkness. "What is this?" she asked. "The past," he said. "If you want answers, follow me." Queen Naylyra had ruled 5 star systems. She had crushed rebellions, ended wars. But now, as she followed a human ghost into the ice, she felt something she had not felt in years: uncertainty and curiosity. Who was this man? And why did the galaxy lie about what he was? Because Jace was not just a survivor, he was something else, something that wasn't supposed to exist. A human warrior, a myth, walking beside her and breathing. The queen who questioned her own history, The steps led down into cold darkness. Queen, Neelyra followed Jace in silence, the air growing thinner as they descended. Walls of steel surrounded them, lined with strange panels covered in dust. Everything looked old, but not dead, not fully. "This place is human," she whispered. Jace said nothing. He stopped in front of a thick metal door. The edges were marked, with strange letters. She didn't understand the symbols, but the word in the center caught her eye. Revenant. "What does it mean?" she asked. Jace placed his hand on a nearby scanner. "It means I was never supposed to wake up." The door opened with a heavy hiss. Beyond it lay a wide room, dark and deep. Flickering lights came on slowly. Pieces of machines, weapons, cryo-tanks, and old Earth flags lay half buried in frost. Neelyra stepped forward, stunned. There were pictures on the walls of humans in strange armor, smiling beside alien allies she had only read about in old war logs. "This can't be real," she said. "It is," Jace answered. "This is a human base, buried beneath ice, in Dominion territory." "You were never told," he said, "because your kind was erased." Neelyra walked through the room, touching objects with trembling fingers. A cracked helmet, a broken pulse blade, a badge with the name Lot. Jace Marshall engraved on it. She turned. "You were more than a soldier." Jace nodded. "I was part of Project Revenant, a ghost team." "What kind of team?" "The kind sent to places no one else returned from." "And what happened to your team?" He looked away. "They didn't return either." His voice was empty now. But behind that silence, Neelyra felt something. Loss. Buried deep. "How did you survive?" "My orders were to stay hidden. Wait for pickup. That pickup never came." "So you've been here? Alone? For 82 cycles." Neelyra's chest tightened. "You were left behind." "We all were," he said. Earth was burning. The Dominion turned its back, and when the fires stopped, the victors rewrote the story. Our records said humans destroyed themselves. Jace laughed without humor. "Your records lied." Neelyra stood in front of a large display screen. It flickered with a weak signal. Old files, faded names, partial data. She tapped the controls. A video played. A human general stood in a burning city. To anyone still listening, this is General Armin of the Last Fleet. Project Revenant has failed. We trusted the Dominion. They gave us promises. Then they sealed the gates and left us here. If humanity ends, let someone know we tried. We fought. We mattered. The screen went black. Neelyra stepped back. Her legs shook. "We did this," she said. "My ancestors, they watched you dying and then called you monsters. They feared us," Jace said, "and buried the truth. Until now." She looked up at him. "Why save me? Why show me this?" Jace looked at her, eyes calm but tired. "Because I don't want revenge. I want the truth to matter again." They returned to the surface. Snow was falling again, light and quiet. Neelyra sat near the small fire Jace had rebuilt, her thoughts racing. "My empire is built on lies," she whispered. "Then maybe it's time to change it," Jace said. "But why now? Why me?" "Because you saw me, and didn't look away." Hours passed. Neelyra stared into the fire. "What happens if I tell them?" she asked. "If I bring this back to the council, they'll call you mad, or a traitor. And if I say nothing, then the lie continues, and more truths stay buried. What would you do?" Jace's voice was quiet. "I would burn the lie and build something better." She looked at him with new eyes, not just as a myth, not just a warrior, but as a man who had lost everything, and still stood, and that made her wonder something she had never asked before. What if her strength was not in ruling, but in listening to the one voice her empire feared? The buried ship and the ancient truth. The next morning, the sky above the frozen moon turned dark gray. Snow drifted slowly like ash falling from forgotten stars. Inside the cave, Queen Nylyra sat beside the fire, her back against the stone wall. Her eyes were open, but she wasn't seeing the flames. She was thinking about everything. Humans were not extinct. They were betrayed, and one of them, Jace, had survived for over 80 cycles beneath her empire's feet. And now, she had to decide what to do with that truth. Jace stood near the edge of the cave, scanning the horizon through an old scope. "Storms are coming," he said. "We need shelter deeper in the ground. The next wind wave could bury the cave." "There's more below?" Nylyra asked. He nodded. "One level deeper." "The hangar." "A ship?" "Maybe, if it's still whole." She stood and followed him back to the steel door below. This time, when it opened, she didn't hesitate. They walked into a deeper section of the base. The hallway was long, dark, covered in frost and silence. Jace lit the path with an old light band. They reached a large door sealed with emergency locks. He placed his hand on the panel. "Nothing. Frozen," he said. He reached into a small box and pulled out a small torch. After minutes of cutting and sparks, the lock broke. The door opened, and what stood behind it made Nylyra stop breathing for a moment. A massive human warship, buried in ice, silent but intact. Its name glowed faintly on the side, Paragon. Nylyra stepped forward slowly. "This is a war legend. We studied this ship in strategy lessons, but only as a myth." "Not a myth," Jace said. "This was my ship." They entered the cold wreck. Inside, the lights flickered weakly. The halls were wide and built for speed and combat. Old cryopods lined the wall, not all empty. Some shattered. They reached the bridge, screens cracked, chairs rusted. But one console still blinked with power. Jace tapped in an old code. A hidden message appeared. A woman's voice spoke. Broken. Static-filled. "To any revenant still alive, we were betrayed. The Dominion Council sold us out. Evacuation failed. Paragon's cryocore survived, but most didn't. If you find this, forgive us. We fought. We didn't run." Nylyra listened in silence. When the voice ended, she touched the console gently. "This is proof," she said. "Your kind didn't vanish. They were left behind." "They were erased," Jace said. He walked to the captain's chair and sat for a moment. Then, looked at her. "You asked me why I saved you," he said. "Yes. Because once a human saved me too, and she was from the Dominion. One of my people? A medic. She refused orders, hid me in a cryopod when the base was collapsing." Nylyra stared at him. "What happened to her?" "She died buying me time." Silence filled the bridge. Then Nylyra stepped closer. "You carry too many ghosts. They're lighter than lies," he said. They found an old emergency transmitter in the cargo bay. Nylyra studied it. "I can send a private signal to my ship. Let them extract us before the storm. You trust them?" "I trust my first officer," she said. "She's loyal to me, not the council. And if others come too?" "Then I protect you," Nylyra said. Jace stared at her. "You'd stand against your own empire?" "If it means standing for the truth," she said, "then yes." He smiled slightly. "You're not like the others." "I never wanted to be," she whispered. They activated the signal, but neither noticed the blinking dot far above them. In space, a drone shifted its position, and far away, in a Dominion warship, a general received the alert. "The Queen is alive," he said coldly, "and with a human." Hunted by her own fleet, the storm came faster than expected. Snow slammed against the mountain cliffs like waves against rock. Winds howled across the frozen moon, shaking the cave entrance and burying half the path. Deep inside the buried warship, Queen Nylyra and Jace waited beside the old transmitter. The signal had been sent. Now all they could do was wait. Nylyra stood by the window of the ship's command deck looking up at the sky. "If my officer received it," she said, "she'll send a small rescue pod, silent and fast." Jace checked the weapon storage. "And if someone else got it," she looked at him. "Then we prepare for war." 2 hours later, A warning light blinked on the console. Something had entered the upper atmosphere. A Dominion ship. Naelira leaned forward. "That's not a scout pod," she said. "That's a full assault carrier." Jace narrowed his eyes. "They brought soldiers. They think you kidnapped me." Jace strapped on an old combat vest. "They won't believe the truth. Then we show them." The carrier landed near the frozen ridge above the ship. Armed Dominion guards poured out fast, armored in silver plating, their weapons humming with energy. Naelira stepped out first, wrapped in a thick cloak, walking straight into the wind. Her second-in-command Commander Threx rushed forward. "Your Grace, you're alive." She nodded. "I sent the signal myself. I am unharmed." "And the human?" Naelira paused. "He saved me." Threx's eyes narrowed. "That creature is the reason you crashed." "No," she said sharply. "He pulled me from the wreckage. He gave me shelter. He protected me when no one else did." Threx's voice turned cold. "With respect, Your Grace, and when that doesn't change what he is." Behind her, Jace stepped out of the shadows. He didn't raise his weapon. He didn't speak. He just looked at the squad of soldiers with steady eyes. A silence fell across the snow. One soldier stepped forward and pointed his weapon at Jace. "Hands up." Naelira raised her voice. "Lower your weapon. He's a threat. That's an order." The soldier hesitated, then obeyed. But Threx was not done. He turned to his team. "Seize the human. Now." Jace reached for his sidearm, but Naelira stepped between them. "You will not touch him," she said. "You're protecting him?" Threx asked. "After everything they did to us?" "I'm protecting the truth," she said. "This man has done more in 1 week than our own council has in years." Threx's voice turned dark. "You've been compromised." Naelira pulled her blade from her side and pointed it at him. "I have been changed, not by weakness, but by truth." The soldiers froze. None moved. The wind howled louder. Then suddenly, a shot rang out. One soldier fired at Jace. The blast hit his shoulder, burning through armor. He dropped to one knee. Naelira screamed, stepping in front of him, her blade glowing. But Jace stood again, blood on his arm, fire in his eyes. He raised his weapon, once used only in the old wars, and fired once. The blast hit the ice wall beside the soldiers, cracking the surface. The cliff above them groaned, then collapsed. Snow and rock poured down, cutting the Dominion troops off from the entrance. Jace grabbed Naelira's hand. "Go," he shouted. They ran back inside the ship, the steel doors sealed behind them. Inside, Naelira helped Jace remove his vest. His shoulder was burned, bleeding, but not fatal. "You should have let me handle them," she said. "They weren't going to listen," he replied. "You had to see that." She nodded slowly. "I did. And now, they'll call me a traitor." "Then let them," Jace said, "because now you're more than their queen." She looked at him. "What am I then?" "You're someone who chose fire over silence." Outside, the Dominion soldiers regrouped. Threx stared at the sealed cave and sent one message back to the Empire. "Queen compromised. Target is armed. Request full purge strike." The reply came in seconds. "Approved." The fall of the Crystal Dominion. The Empire's sky no longer shined. Smoke rose from the outer towers of the capital city. The air was tense. Streets once filled with music now echoed with boots and fear. Queen Naelira had returned, not as a ruler, stepping into glory, but as a hunted voice walking into fire. She and Jace entered the city under shadow. Old allies helped them slip through back corridors and forgotten gates. They moved fast, but too many eyes watched. News of her return spread faster than light. The queen walks with a human. The traitor comes home. The ancient myth breathes, again. Inside the throne hall, the Council of Stars had already begun their move. High Commander Threx stood at the center, now dressed in royal armor. Behind him, 10 elite guards held weapons tight. "By order of the Council," Threx said, "the throne is to be taken. The Queen is unfit to lead. She has brought a threat to our world." The Council members nodded in silence. None questioned, None stood. They were afraid. Afraid of the truth Naylira carried, and even more afraid of the human at her side. Naylira stepped into the chamber. Alone. Jace waited outside, wounded, but ready. Her voice echoed through the marble hall. "This is still my court," she said. "You do not wear my crown." Threx smiled coldly. "Your crown was burned the day you chose a ghost. He is not a ghost. He is what your stories tried to erase. And you brought him to our door. Because he saved my life. And because I will no longer sit on a throne made of lies." Threx lifted his blade. "Then you will not sit at all." The guards moved in, but Jace was already inside. He burst through the side gates, fire in his eyes. He didn't wait for permission. He fought. One soldier fell with a crack of bone. Another dropped from a pulse shot. But there were too many. 3 grabbed him, forced him down, and shocked him until he stopped moving. "Don't kill him," Threx barked. "We need to show the people what he truly is." Naylira ran forward, but guards blocked her. "You will not harm him," she shouted. "You've already harmed this empire," Threx hissed. He raised a hand. "Take the human to the lower prison. And the queen? Strip her title, lock her in the tower, until the purge vote is complete." The council said nothing. Cowards in gold. Naylira didn't scream. She didn't beg. She looked at Jace as they dragged him away. His eyes opened just enough to see her one last time, and she mouthed 2 words. "I promise." Hours passed. Jace was chained in the black cell beneath the palace. His body ached. But worse than pain was silence. The kind of silence before something ends. Above him, the empire moved. Soldiers marched. Council members voted. And Naylira, they didn't let him see her. But he knew. She wouldn't stop. Not now. Not after everything. In the tower, Naylira sat alone. No crown. No guards. Just one voice whispering in her mind. "If you bend now, everything ends." She stood, ripped the thin chain from her wrist, cut her palm, and with her blood, drew the symbol of the flame, the oldest mark of rebellion. And then, she smiled. "If they want war," she whispered, "then let them face what they buried." The queen who chose Fire Night fell on the Crystal Dominion, but the stars above were silent. Queen Naylira no longer wore her crown. She wore purpose. Inside the high tower, locked behind old stone and steel, she waited for the perfect moment, and when it came, she moved like lightning. She disarmed the guard with a hidden blade from her boot, fast, sharp, silent. Within minutes, she was gone. Through dark tunnels once built by rebels, through secret paths only the royal blood could walk, and she was not alone. A loyal friend waited in the shadows, her old pilot Mirren, one of the last who still believed. "You're really doing this?" Mirren asked. "I'm not just doing it," Naylira said. "I'm finishing it." Beneath the palace, in the black cells, Jace hung in chains, his body bruised, his mind clear, his eyes steady. He heard the steps before he saw her, and when Naylira stepped into the cell, he smiled. "You took your time," he said, voice weak but calm. "I had to break a few rules first," she replied. She used her blood mark to unlock the cell. The door groaned open. He fell forward. She caught him. "You came back," he whispered. "I promised," she said. She pulled him close. "And I don't break my word." They escaped into the night sky aboard a stolen speeder, flying low over rooftops and shadowed alleys. Myron flew fast, silent, and fearless. "Where to now?" Jace asked. "Somewhere even the Dominion forgot," Naylira said. "The Resistance?" "No," she said softly. "Something older." They landed at the edge of the burnt cliffs, far beyond the capital, where the land cracked and glowed faintly under the moon. Naylira stepped off the ship first. This place was buried by time. It was once called the Ember Cradle. "Never heard of it," Jace said. "That's because it was erased," she replied. "My ancestors hid it, after they betrayed yours." They walked into a canyon of red rock, the air hot but dry. Old doors appeared in the ground carved into the rock. Symbols glowed faintly beneath the dust. Jace touched one, and the door opened. Inside was silence. Not dead silence, ancient silence. They entered a chamber filled with human technology and something else. Glowing lights ran along the walls. Statues of human and alien soldiers stood together, side by side. At the center, a single chair sat under a glass dome. "What is this place?" Jace asked. "A council once stood here," Naylyra said. "Before the war, before the lie, a dream of peace between our kinds. And now, it becomes our fire." Naylyra pressed her hand to the console. Systems came online. Maps lit up. One signal blinked from deep space, an old human resistance beacon. "What is that?" Jace asked. "Our final hope," she whispered. "A hidden fleet, sleeping for 100 years." Jace stepped forward. "And you think they'll wake up for me?" She looked at him. "They'll wake up for the truth." Outside, the winds began to shift. Above them, the stars grew brighter, and far in the distance the Dominion's war fleet began to move. But this time, they weren't the only ones. The myth who became her shield. The stars burned brighter than ever before. Ships moved across the sky like shadows with wings. Some bore the crystal mark of the Dominion. Others bore the old symbol of Earth, a cracked star wrapped in flame. Deep, in the ember cradle, Queen Naylyra and Jace stood together. The ancient beacon had worked. A hidden human fleet, silent for a century, had awakened. They did not come for revenge. They came because one of their own still lived, and he had called. The final message was sent from Naylyra's command post. "We do not seek war," she said to the galaxy, her voice broadcast to all systems. "We seek truth. We seek peace. And we will no longer hide behind lies and silence." Some worlds cheered, some feared, but all listened. The Dominion Council did not listen. Their ships fired first. They sent a storm of fire toward the old canyon. And Jace, the human they called a ghost, stood in the way. He entered the field in an old Earth battlesuit, armor cracked, systems half working. But he didn't hesitate. The cannon fire rained down and Jace held the line. The fleet behind him rose into the sky. Not to destroy, to defend. Naylyra joined the command circle, voice steady. "Target-only engines. We do not kill. We show them what honor looks like." The battle was fire and wind and memory. Jace fought beside both species, human pilots and Valerie rebels working together. He protected the rear line. He saved a wounded alien fighter, and he took a hit meant for Naylyra's ship. When the dust settled, the Dominion fleet was broken, not by death, but by choice. Many ships powered down, others turned away, and one council member, the oldest voice of the Empire, stepped forward and knelt before Naylyra. "You are not a traitor," he said. "You are the fire we forgot." In the Great Hall of Unity, once built, then buried, now rebuilt, Naylyra stood before the galaxy. Jace stood beside her. He no longer needed to prove anything. He was not just a soldier, not just a survivor. He was her shield, and now, her future. A new order was born that day, a shared banner of fire and stars. Human, Valerie, equals. And the myth of the human warrior was no longer a secret. He had returned, not to take power, but to protect the one who had given him a reason to stand again. Later, as the city lights glowed under a peaceful sky, Naylyra and Jace stood on the highest tower. "They still stare," he said. "Let them," she replied, "because they're seeing what was once impossible." He smiled. "What do they see now?" She took his hand. "They see a queen who chose a human, and a myth," he said, "who became her shield."